I'm with James, Clerk of the course at Thirsk Racecourse. James, good to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Been a lovely day.
Welcome to Thirsk, and thanks for supporting us today.
That's all right. Thank you very much. So, if I wouldn't mind, a couple of questions.
Yeah.
How far in advance of days racing do you start preparing the ground, and what does it entail typically?
Okay, well the ground, the ground's an organic thing. Obviously, it's turf.
Yeah.
We are preparing it for racing all year round, except for midwinter really. So at the end of the season, we do a lot of work to put it to bed, so to speak. So we'll spike it, vertidrain it. We'll put an autumn dressing on it.
Yeah.
We'll cut it very short to encourage it to grow. We will rake out a lot of dead grass as well and try and leave it in a really good condition for the winter. And then we like a hard winter.
Yeah.
On the flat, we like a hard winter. Our friends on the jumping don't. We like it. We want it to freeze all winter. It's really good for the ground. Cracks the ground, kills the bugs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then really, we don't do a right lot until it starts to come to life again.
Yeah.
So for today, so we're the 12th of April, we've probably been mowing for a month. Mm-hmm. So it just starts to grow, and then we just start to mow it a little bit, and then we put our what we have a spring dressing, which is designed just to help it come on and grow a bit. So we'd have put that down a month ago as well.
Yeah.
And then we water that in, and then a bit of spraying and stuff. So, and then all summer we are either spiking it or cutting it or doing pesticides or herbicides or something like that, just to keep it in pristine condition. But the build up to attract the actual race day itself, that depends largely on the weather.
Yeah.
Because if it's raining nicely, all we're doing is mowing. It's nice and simple. We might have to move a bit of rail, but all we're doing is mowing. But for this week, for instance, we've actually had a very dry spell, unusually for April. So I've been watching for the last 10 days. I've been walking the course more or less every day and getting a feel for what's happening. And I turned the taps on Monday because I thought, if I don't, I now need to water. So, and I had confidence in the forecast by then. It's going to be a dry week. Okay, I can bank some water on without wrecking.
Yeah. I was going to ask, given it's been an unusually dry sort of spring, have you had different challenges to what you'd normally expect at this time of year?
Right, well, so last year we started a little bit earlier with a replacement BHA fixture, which we got at short notice.
Yeah.
That was on heavy ground. Right. So I opened my track up, knackered it on day one. So we were getting that back for this meeting last year. And obviously we weren't watering or worried about that at all. We just wanted to get the track back and as level as we could for what should have been our opening meeting. And this meeting last year was on soft ground. So not thinking about watering in the slightest, just worrying about the weather and anything like that last year. So very different beginning to this year, where it's been so dry, where we've had to, very unusual. That I think I've been here for 15 years now, and I think I've only watered for the opening meeting twice.
Okay.
Actually, in my memory.
Yeah.
I think the last one was 2021 maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that. Yeah. The second.
Yeah, I remember it was dry that year.
Yeah, it was dry. Yeah. So it's quite unusual to be watering as much as we've watered.
Yeah.
Before the 12th of April.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from a sort of forecasting perspective, what are you typically using to determine, where you're at for the week?
I have great faith in the Met Office.
Yeah.
The BBC essentially use the Met Office feed if you ever follow it.
Yeah, no, I do.
They're the same as well. Interestingly, there's a site that clerks of the course get phoned up and they say, right, how much rain are you going to get?
Yeah.
Now, the BBC don't try and forecast that sort of thing or anything like that. They'll say it's going to be light or heavy or persistent or whatever. But there is a Norwegian site.
YR?
YO.
Yeah, I use that.
Yeah, I think it's YO. Anyway, that's on speed dial on my phone as well,
right, okay.
Because that will give you some stats on weather.
Millimetres.
That will say you're going to get 18 mils of rain or whatever. And sometimes it's uncannily accurate.
Yeah.
So I'll use that, but you generally you get a feel from 2 or 3 weather sites what's coming your way.
Yeah.
Basically. So we're quite fortunate here in that track is a superb naturally draining track.
Yeah.
It's on gravel. And so we had one meeting, not long after I'd started, probably 2012, 2013, something like that, where we had 20 millimetres of rain in about 5 minutes during racing, and that track took it.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, we had another 20 millilitres of rain. It was one of these summer meetings where you're getting cloudbursts in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was stood on the track. And I remember talking to Paul Mulrennan, who'd ridden, because it had come down while they were racing, and he said, "It's fine.
Yeah.
You know, we're splashing through it. Don't worry about it." 20 minutes later, it's gone. It's just gone. And there aren't many tracks that can take that and just get rid of it. It just flows through.
I think you must be blessed in Yorkshire, because York's a similar course, isn't it?
No, York's got a lot of drainage.
They used to, didn't they? And then
York have got a massive culvert all the way up the inside. But York, actually, it's called the Knaves Mire.
It is.
It used to be a floodplain.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've done a massive job at York of improving the ground, and they've improved it brilliantly. But they've spent millions on keeping the water away and getting it into the drains very quickly when it comes.
So you're the standard bearer for that.
Have you? Well, we're just lucky.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But York's a fantastic course. They do a great job.
You do it right up there.
They're class. They're just class. Yeah.
So, in terms of the BHA, do they give you much of a directive as to what to do?
We have thousands of pages of what we're expected to do. There's a thing called, I don't know if you've ever been onto the BHA website and looked.
I have.
Have you looked at the British Horse Racing Association General Instructions?
I usually, if I'm struggling with insomnia.
Yeah. They're called the barges. So that's a book. If you printed it out, I'm not joking, it's that thick. And that tells us exactly what's expected of us in every single part of the operations. And there's a big section on preparing the ground. There's a big section on medical services, veterinary services, all of the integrity facilities, stuff like that. We have a lot of instruction, a lot of compliance, and we're inspected regularly by their course inspectors and their medical department and their veterinary department, and so we're under the microscope all the time. But the answer to your question is yes, there's a lot of...
The lack of stick readings last year at Thirsk. What's your thoughts on the going stick? And are you a big believer in it or not?
The going stick is a controversial instrument in the clerk and the course world. So you have some clerks that swear by it, and they rely on it. They think it's a very useful instrument. The BHA have become more insistent on it being used. I think you'll probably find there's a degree or an element of clerks like me, been around a long time, never really trusted it, but I have used it and I've tried it, and I'm using it. I've got to use it now. It's basically rule now. I'll tell you my problem with the going stick is I don't think it gives you if you're using a going stick to create data across a whole year, across 60 race courses, jumping and flat, you will have too much variety unless you are creating your own data specifically for your race course, or you as a punter are creating data for each race course, and you begin to create your own patterns. I don't think it's any help, because most people just look at a reading and they think that is it's a reading that would apply from Perth to Newton Abbot, from Haydock to Beverley, and it doesn't. And there's a little sort of there's a sort of list of where the number equals the going. So it's interesting. And when you look at going reports, in theory they could go from like 1 for bottomless up to, I think it's about 40, something like that. It's that. But you will never see a going report that's much lower than 4, and you'll probably never see a going report that's much higher than 8. So, if you're a trainer and you're looking for good ground, what are you going to declare on? with your experience with the going stick, what would you say to a trainer? Oh, that's a good ground reading.
If you're looking for good ground, probably high 6s, 7-ish.
Right. Okay. What do you think the ground is today?
Put me on the spot, James.
Well,
7.2.
It's no, the ground. What do you think
the
ground
ground?
is?
I'd say good ground, solid good ground today.
Solid good ground. Okay. My going stick reading this morning, 8.6.
There you go.
And my going stick reading for declarations, 8.9. If I put 8.9,
You get a lot of non-runners.
I get a lot of non-runners, and I get a lot of punters going, that's not good, that's bloody firm, you're a nutter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So I've published a reading.
Yeah.
Do you know what I've done? I've taken one whole point off it
Yeah.
to put it where people can interpret it better.
Okay.
And the reason I've done that is because I think the actual reading that I'm getting off a stick that's just been serviced is misleading.
That's
And that,
fascinating, to be honest.
that is why I don't like the going stick.
Okay.
Simple as that. I've got nothing against the people that like it and work it or anything like that. And good luck to you if you can make it work for you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work for me at Thirsk. And that's why I've been so resistant to using it, because I don't think it helps. And there are a lot of clerks, of course, and they might not admit this, who get a going stick reading and then go, I can't publish that. And I mean at the top of the game as well. There's no way I'm publishing that.
Yeah.
And they will massage it. And so if you're making a number up that correlates with what you think the going is, then what's the point of the stick? Let's just do that anyway.
Agreed, yeah.
Let's just go on the chart and go, it's good ground, we want to be 7.4. That'll do, 7.4. A lot of people do that.
Wow.
There you go.
Fantastic. In terms of track biases, James, how do you handle those if you're noticing perhaps one side's quicker than the other, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're not one of those courses that has a massive track bias. You know, for a long time people said, oh, you need to be drawn high in the straight. You'll know that. And there's an element of truth to that, because for 100 years the stalls have been on the stand side and they've come down that rail. And so it's been pounded. And so it was always felt a little bit quicker. And actually right on the inside, where they come around the round course, and sometimes they fan out, but sometimes they don't, pounded. So what we did actually, a few years ago, we put the stalls in the middle. And actually, if it's soft ground, they'll still go to that rail because they think it's quicker. So if you're drawn high, you've still got, in theory, a bit of an advantage. But now they do spend a bit more time coming up the middle, which I think eliminates it. And interestingly, some fella had a go at me about our bias, and he was saying, if you're drawn low, never a chance. And actually, I got a mate at one of his. I said, will you just do me a favour, just analyse this statement? And he sent me back this data, and it made it very clear it was nonsense. It's not. There's not a bias. I mean, it's like everything. If on the round course, if you're drawn wide outside, you've got to get across. It's a little bit of a disadvantage wherever you go. But our straight course, I think, is pretty fair.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And final question, James.
Yeah.
I hear your brother is a clerk of the course.
Yes.
At Redcar,
yes,
amongst other places.
Yes.
Talking of biases,
Yeah.
who would you say is the better clerk?
Well, John Joe's a lot younger than me.
Right.
He's probably more enthusiastic. Probably got better eyesight and better hearing. So I'm going to hand it to him.
Okay.